A band of men believed they had cornered a simple mark, oblivious to the tempest they were about to ignite. The night was eerily silent, cloaking the neighborhood in a hushed embrace. Leon Walker, a 36-year-old off-duty SWAT officer, strode purposefully along the leafy avenues of a suburban Indianapolis enclave. Though his shift had ended hours earlier, he chose this night for a contemplative stroll. The day had sapped his energy, yet the steady crunch of his boots on the pavement provided a soothing counterpoint to relentless demands. Clad in unassuming black jeans, a modest hoodie, and sneakers, Leon blended into the shadows, though his muscular, commanding presence spoke volumes of someone adept at handling the unforeseen. Still, despite his seasoned background, an unsettling intuition tugged at him, hinting that tonight was different. Every house around lay in darkness, with porch lights flickering feebly or abandoned entirely, while a distant dog barked, a brief fracture in the silence before it resumed its hold. A quick glance at his watch read 11:47 p.m., a time when most souls slumbered. Yet Leon felt no alarm. He knew these streets well, the hidden corners, the secret shortcuts, the pulse of this place, and he was merely a few blocks from his cousin's safe haven where he planned to rest. As he turned onto a quieter lane, a car glided past with a low, throaty hum, its occupants slowed to peer through darkened windows. Leon remained unruffled, his disciplined training keeping him measured, yet he sensed predatory eyes fixed upon him. The vehicle melted around the corner, and moments later, the sound of deliberate footsteps began to echo. Emerging at the block's end was a cluster of 5 or 6 men, exuding casual arrogance as they laughed boisterously, a sound devoid of warmth. Instinctively, Leon adjusted his stride, steady yet vigilant, and the men's chatter dimmed as they veered to intercept his path. It soon became evident that their presence was no mere late-night ramble. A leader, likely in his late 20s with a self-satisfied smirk and a swagger dripping with menace, stepped forward, his cronies fanning out like a pack of predators awaiting a cue. "Hey, buddy," he drawled in saccharine mockery, "what brings you out here on your lonesome?" Leon halted. Confrontation didn't rattle him, yet he understood the wisdom in avoiding needless provocation. Meeting their eyes with an unruffled gaze, he replied in a low, measured tone, "Just walking." The men exchanged glances, their smirks suggesting they'd been dealt a winning hand, but Leon remained unmoved. Years of high-stakes encounters had taught him that even a trace of fear could tip the scales, and though the moment grew heavier, they still knew nothing of his true capabilities. That revelation, however, was imminent. The night, it seemed, was determined to test every ounce of his patience and self-restraint. Advancing a step closer, the leader's smirk contorted into a sneer as he spat, "Funny, you don't seem to belong here," his tone laced with condescension. His cohorts chuckled, their mirth echoing ominously along the vacant street. Leon's expression stayed impassive as he held his ground with a stance both neutral and resolute. "I wasn't aware that merely walking was a privilege," he countered in a soothing, almost disarming tone. The leader's eyes narrowed, his pride pricked by Leon's cool indifference. "Got jokes, huh? I doubt you understand, we don't welcome strangers here." With that, the men closed in, their formation tightening like a noose. Leon's gaze swept over them, noting every detail, the constant clenching of one man's fists, another's furtive glances for onlookers, and a third subtly gripping a small object, perhaps a key or a pocket knife. In an instant, his mind raced through assessments, his training urged him to seize control and de-escalate even as he knew how swiftly matters might spiral. Still composed, his hands hung relaxed at his sides, poised for any contingency. "Stranger, huh?" he stated evenly. "I'm merely passing through, I seek no trouble." The leader scoffed, "Trouble? Nah, we're just engaging in a friendly chat," his sarcasm seeping through as he gestured to his crew, "Right, boys?" Their laughter, however, rang not with genuine humor but as a foreboding challenge, a test of resolve. Leon sensed the tension shift, taut as an overstretched rubber band on the verge of snapping. "You're far from home, aren't you?" another man interjected, his tone rising with aggression, "strutting around like you own this place." Leon did not react rashly, he simply shifted his weight in a subtle maneuver that maintained both his balance and an unobstructed view of all 6 adversaries. He recognized that their actions were not personal, but rather a desperate play for power, a display of collective bravado. Still, their next move would decide everything, and he wished to avoid engagement unless absolutely necessary. "Are you done yet?" he inquired, his voice calm yet unwavering, the question hanging in the air like an open challenge. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, the leader's smirk faltered, replaced momentarily by uncertainty. It was clear Leon was defying their expectations, not frightened, not cowering, merely standing firm, a fact that only stoked their fury further. The leader's grin returned, now sharper. "Not yet, we're only warming up," he sneered. Yet they remained blind to the tempest they were about to provoke, and Leon was not about to yield easily. The posse advanced, their footsteps slow and deliberate, as though predators were encircling their prey. Leon's pulse quickened, though his face stayed serene. Every measured step of his assailants was catalogued in his mind, distances gauged, movements mapped, escape routes forming. He wasn't seeking conflict, yet he refused to be trapped. "You're awfully quiet," the leader taunted, tilting his head provocatively. "What's the matter, cat got your tongue?" Another chimed in mockingly, "Maybe he's scared, you scared, huh?" Leon drew a measured, steady breath and replied plainly, "No." The leader bristled at that reply, his smug smile contorting into something darker. "So you're a tough guy, huh? Strolling through our turf like you're untouchable." With a dismissive gesture toward his comrades, he added, "Perhaps we ought to demonstrate how we deal with tough guys around here." The group murmured in unison, their collective confidence swelling. One man fished a knife from his pocket, its blade catching a faint glimmer beneath the streetlights. Leon's gaze fixed on the weapon, his senses intensifying. He neither flinched nor recoiled. Instead, his voice dropped to a calm yet firm tone, "Put that away before you come to regret it." The knife wielder hesitated, taken aback by Leon's tone, yet the leader refused to relent. "You think you're calling the shots here?" he barked, advancing menacingly. For a fleeting moment, Leon's composure faltered and his tone turned icily. "I'm offering you a chance to walk away, take it." The tension climaxed, the air dense with the unspoken question of who would strike first. Suddenly, one man lunged, forcefully shoving Leon in the chest. Leon barely budged, his body as immovable as an ancient oak. "Big guy, huh?" the assailant jeered, emboldened by his shove, but before another word could escape, Leon moved in one fluid motion, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting it to force the knife to clatter onto the pavement. A cry of pain burst forth as the man crumpled to his knees. The group froze, awestruck by the speed and precision of Leon's counter. "I told you," Leon stated, his voice both calm and commanding, "walk away." Yet the leader would not relent. "Get him," he roared, and the group surged forward. Leon flowed like water, his training commandeering his movements. He sidestepped one assailant, sending him crashing into another. Then, with a swift elbow to the gut, he dropped the next, leaving him gasping. Every motion was efficient and calculated, not a hint of wasted energy. Soon, the attackers recognized they were outmatched, but stubborn pride spurred them on. One after another, they attempted to overwhelm him, yet Leon's seasoned experience shone through. He wasn't merely defending himself, he was mastering the chaos, ensuring none left with more than bruises and unforgettable lessons. But even as their assault began to falter, the leader's desperation surged, driving the situation to its breaking point. His face reddened with fury, his confidence crumbling as his men faltered. One by one, he retreated slightly, his chest heaving as he drew a second, larger, more menacing blade from his pocket. The metal gleamed ominously under the streetlight, and though his grip was tight, his hand trembled ever so slightly despite his forced bravado. "Think you're some kind of hero?" he snarled, his voice cracking under mounting frustration. "Let's see just how tough you are." Leon's expression steeled as his posture remained unwavering, his tone dropping to a commanding murmur. "You've made enough mistakes tonight, don't make another." The leader hesitated, those words striking him like a brick wall, yet pride, or perhaps the dread of humiliation before his men, kept him rooted. Then he lunged with the knife aimed squarely at Leon. Time seemed to slow as Leon pivoted gracefully, sidestepping the thrust with surgical precision. In one fluid motion, he disarmed the leader by twisting the knife free and hurling it out of reach, then delivered a controlled strike to the man's chest that sent him stumbling backward into a heap. Those who had been mustering courage to rejoin the fray froze instantly. Their leader, once their emblem of authority, now lay defeated and humiliated on the pavement. The atmosphere shifted as arrogance dissolved into a creeping realization of their miscalculation. Leon loomed over them, his breathing steady and his face inscrutable. At first, he allowed silence to speak, then in a calm yet firm tone declared, "You're lucky I'm off duty. If I weren't, you'd all be cuffed right now, but you're leaving tonight. Remember this moment the next time you consider picking on someone you deem weak." His words struck like thunder, leaving the men exchanging disbelieving glances as their bravado crumbled. One by one, they retreated, murmuring apologies and feeble excuses as they melted into the neighborhood shadows. Yet the leader, still sprawled on the ground, lingered, his bruised pride more evident than any physical injury, unaccustomed to defeat. Leon crouched to meet the leader's gaze and stated quietly, "Strength isn't measured by how loudly you can shout or the size of your posse, it's knowing when to step away. Ponder that." Straightening up, he turned his back on the group and quickened his pace, distancing himself from the chaos he had just quelled. Still, the echoes of the encounter would resonate long into the night, its impact far surpassing the brief skirmish. Leon strode away with deliberate, measured steps as his mind replayed the encounter, not in regret, but as a conditioned reflex where every detail mattered, the way they had encircled him, the glint of the blade, the dawning terror in their eyes when their miscalculation became apparent. It wasn't the first time he'd been unjustly judged, and he knew it wouldn't be the last. By the time he arrived at his cousin's house, the adrenaline in his veins had waned, a warm porch light beckoned, almost incongruous after the night's chill. He paused briefly before entering, inhaling deeply to steady his thoughts. The following morning, Leon sat with his cousin at the kitchen table, sipping coffee as sunlight poured through the window. Reggie, a dedicated schoolteacher, observed the tension in Leon's shoulders and asked with genuine concern, "You good?" Leon nodded, though his eyes remained distant. "I ran into trouble last night. Some guys thought they could intimidate me." Reggie frowned. "In this neighborhood?" "That's hardly surprising, but are you all right?" "I'm fine," Leon replied. "They left with bruises, but they'll live. Hopefully they'll think twice before trying that again." Shaking his head with a blend of frustration and admiration, Reggie murmured, "You handled that better than most, but it shouldn't be this way. You shouldn't have to face that kind of ordeal." Leon sighed, setting his mug down. "No, I shouldn't, but this is our reality. The only way to change it is to hold people accountable without ever sinking to their level." Later that day, as Leon readied himself to return home, he noticed a small cluster of teenagers lingering near the very corner of the previous night's altercation. For a fleeting moment, he mistook them for the same men from before, but as he approached, he realized they were merely kids, laughing and chatting, carefree. Leon decelerated, watching them intently, and mused on how starkly different their lives might be if burdened by bias and hate. He reflected on his choices from the night before, the decision to refrain from excessive force, allowing them to depart with bruised dignity yet intact lives. As he rounded the corner, his phone buzzed, a message from Reggie. "Proud of you, man, keep being you." Leon offered a faint smile as he tucked the phone away. He didn't crave praise, but knowing his actions had stirred even a small change in someone's worldview was enough. Yet the invisible scars of the encounter served as a stark reminder, justice does not always come clad in a badge, nor does strength always announce itself with a roar. Leon drove home, the events of the previous night lingering in his mind, not with anger, for he had not been enraged during the clash, but with a deeper sorrow rooted in the reality that prejudice still festered where it had no business. He pondered those men, how their arrogance shattered when confronted with someone they failed to understand, seeing him not as a person but merely as a target, a stereotype ripe for intimidation. Yet the truth remained that such people weren't inherently hateful. Somewhere along the way, they had learned to perceive differences as threats rather than opportunities for connection. Leon hoped that by allowing them to retreat, he had planted a seed, a spark that might eventually kindle reflection, maybe even transformation. Perhaps they would think twice before targeting another, maybe they'd start questioning their own assumptions. For Leon, this silent nightly act reaffirmed what he had long known: real strength lies in restraint, in choosing to diffuse tensions when violence appears the simplest path. Anyone can swing a punch or hurl an insult, but it demands true courage to stand tall while preserving one's integrity. For anyone witnessing this tale, a lesson emerges: do not allow fear or ignorance to dictate your actions. Instead, take the time to perceive people for who they truly are, beyond the labels and biases imposed upon them. Each of us holds the power to shatter cycles of hate, one decision at a time. If this story resonated with you, reflect on how we might all choose better paths in our lives. Share this narrative, ignite conversation, and let its message inspire change, because understanding begins with listening, and transformation starts within each of us.